Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Nurture It show. Last week we had GDPR and it was a fantastic show. This week we're moving away from compliance and regulatory things to actually things that are closer to the typical recruiter's heart. And that's how do you win more business by using social media. Now, we all use social media as a recruiter already. No doubt you've already been on LinkedIn today, trying to find candidates, trying to send some emails, but social media for business development, surely that's a little bit too far away from the funnel. And so whilst I personally get a lot of my business from social media, I often think, could recruiters get more from actually just picking up the phone rather than being on social media, which sometimes feels a little bit away from a win. But to challenge me on what I think today, we've got a fantastic guest. We've got Tony Restell from socialhire.com, and they're a fantastic agency that supports recruitment consultants, but also agencies expand their profile using social media. Now, so hi Tony, how you doing?
Hi Alex, great, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Good. So the first thing I'm going to ask you is just to explain a little bit about you and Social Hire, because there's a lot of people out there that say they're good at social media. So tell us a little bit about what you do and why you think that makes you good at social media.
So I guess part of it is background in the recruitment industry. I built and sold a job board business previously, and so I've been working with recruitment businesses since 2000. And what I saw after I sold that job board business was obviously more and more recruitment teams, both corporate and recruitment agencies, looking to move away from job boards and looking to attract more candidates via other channels, LinkedIn most notably, but social media more generally. And so that was how I came to set up Social Hire. And I think I mentioned to you previously, we originally set the business up to be a free alternative to LinkedIn back in the post-Lehman crash days. And that really led to the business being what it is today. We were really good at marketing that business on social media and getting loads of candidates and recruiters to come and try it out. But the platform itself, it just wasn't good enough. And it wasn't going to be good enough without, a very significant sum of investment. But at the same time, we were getting loads of inquiries from people, what are you doing to get yourself out there so much? I'm seeing you absolutely everywhere. Then people would learn there was only a team of a couple of us, and, they were pretty staggered that we had that much visibility. And we started being asked, would you come in and be our advisors on this, or could we outsource it to you, or could you come in and do some training for our team? So that's how the business as it is today came about. A pivot in the original business idea we had.
And I think that's fantastic. What I love is the fact that you from recruitment, your business has been built off the fact that you were just really good at doing the job, and that pivoted into people paying you to do what you used to do for yourself.
Yes.
And so I think that's a fantastic sort of authentic story that you can share. And I know the size of you as an organization, you haven't grown through buying a big sales team. You've grown through actually people knowing you, finding you on social media, and then engaging with you. So I'm really excited about sharing some of your practical tips today. So just to give everyone an overview of what's coming, we've got, firstly, what are the most effective business development activities that a recruiter can do on social media? We've got, is it all about LinkedIn, or do other channels work too? A step-by-step guide of how do you actually go about winning more new business on a specific niche desk. And last but not least, which is more important, the company presence on social media or the presence of individual recruiters? So we're going to go through each of those questions in turn. And we're going to start, Tony, with what are the most effective business development activities that a recruiter can do on social media?
Okay. So to answer this, what I'd like to do is just start with first principles with social media and getting results. So if you think what the outcome is that you want from social media, whether that's to drive lots more candidates to your business, whether it's to open doors with new clients, fundamentally that comes down to only two things. to get those results, you've got to have reach into the audience you want to get those results from, but you've also got to have conversion. And most recruitment businesses we talk with are falling down and have put a lot of effort into social media, but can't really see many results because they've got one or other, or maybe both of those elements missing. So drawing that back to your question, what's the most effective things to be doing on social media? Well, it's two things. It's firstly doing the things that give you as much reach as possible to the audience that you want to ultimately do business with. So in the case of potential new clients, what is going to get you in front of as many of those new clients as possible? And secondly, then converting them. So we meet lots of businesses that have massive LinkedIn follower numbers. They've invested heavily. They've got lots of Twitter followers, Facebook fans. But the end of the year comes around and they can't point to a single new client that they've picked up through all of that presence. And that is a business that is struggling with conversion. So you taking those, LinkedIn connections or Twitter followers or whatever it might be, and then moving them into the funnel so that they're actually sales calls you're having, or people that have requested a meeting with you. That sort of.
What are the common mistakes you see recruiters make when it comes to converting? So they might build these audiences. How are they impacting their ability to convert interest into actually people that engage with them on the phone or over email?
So this one, open your LinkedIn homepage and you'll see this all day long. It's promoting and advertising instead of trying to start a conversation.
Right.
Say, I had an interesting chat with someone in the last couple of weeks, and the key thing is, is opening the door to having a phone call or a meeting with someone. And what is so powerful about social media, it should be the case that, the next month of your calendar is just booked up with potential clients who've asked for a call with you.
Right.
So the whole activity of having to cold call people, having to try and get through gatekeepers, having to finally, get to actually talk to someone who could choose to engage you, that should just evaporate with social media. You should have set it up in a way that you're just consistently getting that flow of requests. So
that sounds great, but what type of things do I talk about in social media to try and, what do you mean by start a conversation that will initiate someone wanting to talk to me?
So if you think about a lot of recruitment agency activity on social media, business owner will ask all the recruiters, to get more active, to share things on social media, to put the latest jobs out there. But essentially, none of those things really consistently start conversations. And this is the biggest problem. So you've got to focus your time on doing things that actually start conversations. That might be being active in groups. It might be having one-on-one messaging with people that you've connected with. Those kinds of activities, but that can be turned into a scalable activity. If for example, you set yourself a target of, I'm going to connect with this many prospects on LinkedIn over the course of the next month, and in my connection request, I word that in a way that actually starts a conversation, then if I do the same as I did last month, I'm going to get 5 phone calls from that, 10 phone calls from that.
Okay. So I think maybe I could get your thoughts on something. So what I see is, I think recruiters are quite good at starting conversations, but really the only conversation they want is, do you want a job now or do you have a vacancy now? And so sometimes I feel that that's too close to basically saying, do you want to buy this? Do you want to buy it? Do you want to buy it? Where what you're saying is start a conversation more generally, which could be, hey, do you want to chat about your career? Or, hey, do you want to talk about how you retain your staff? So it's a lower barrier to starting a conversation. Is that what you're talking about?
Absolutely, yes. And it's also often focusing on one-on-one conversation rather than broadcasting. So a lot of what recruiters end up doing on social media is writing a post to go out to their LinkedIn network and hoping that someone will see it in the homepage feed and respond to it. Whereas actually, if you put the same effort into crafting a nice message, sending it out to 20 potential clients, you could have 2-3 calls booked off the back of that. Right.
Okay. Would that be, when you talk about broadcasting, as most recruiters, if you look at their feeds, all they're basically saying is, this is my job, I'm recruiting. So what are some of the topics that recruiters could use in their broadcast to basically say, what are the topics that are more likely to engage their audience?
So if I come back to my reach and conversion analogy, the first thing to think about is, how do I get the reach of what I'm posting to be way more?
Okay.
And so you've got to monitor each social media site and know what that site is currently promoting. So LinkedIn, for example, at the moment are giving massive weighting to any updates that are text only. And you can see this with your own feeds. If you go and share 5 blogs over the rest of this week and you put out one update that is a text only update, I can guarantee you that text only update will have 10 times more views than anything else that you put out.
And what do you mean by text only? Is there's no links in it or anything?
There's no links, there's no images, it's purely text. And you'll all see this at the moment on LinkedIn. If you go to your homepage, there will be a lot of posts that are text only, and the ones that you'll particularly see are the ones that have actually sparked people interacting with that post.
And so is that why I've seen a few people, they'll do a text only, and then the first comment is always them then sharing the link to the blog?
Exactly, because that gets around LinkedIn's algorithm, which penalizes you if you include a link in the update, but doesn't mind you putting the link as one of the comments thereafter.
Okay. And so one of the things I've found is that, a few people are asking, but what about video? Isn't LinkedIn pushing a lot of video at the moment?
Yeah, and that's a perfectly valid point. So on each platform, you want to understand what is it that they're currently favoring in the feed, and what do you need to do to get noticed. And yeah, video is one of those things. If you've got the ability to produce some video in the business, you could get a lot more reach from that.
So when it comes to video, which video does best? The shaky camera, hi, here's me in a train station walking with my headset, sort of the live streaming, or something that's better produced in terms of, there's less of it, but it's sort of better produced and more visually appealing? What's your view?
I find generally on social media, the more something looks authentic and the less it looks like a PR department's been behind it, crafting it, the better that does.
Okay. So even if it's a bit shaky and you look like you haven't shaved and that sort of stuff, it's better to be like that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the real you.
Okay. Interesting. And so so we've talked about engaging and posting engaging content on social media. What are some of the other activities that they can do to business development activities you can do on social media?
Well, I think the real thing you want to do is to turn social media into a process that you refine and that you then implement month in, month out. And that will differ depending on the platform that you use. But for example, you might set up, okay, I'm going to have this flow on Twitter where I'm going to follow someone who looks like a potential client. When they connect with me, I'm going to send this message to try and get a conversation started with them. And then you're going to A/B test that. So you're going to test one message you send them when they connect versus another. And you'll probably see a standout winner. There'll be one of them that generates loads of conversations for you, one of them that doesn't. And then you turn that all into something that, and it's not, this isn't something you do in 5 minutes. It's when
you talk about A/B testing of messages, that sounds like it's someone's full-time job. So how can a recruiter take the principles of being more scientific with how I try and execute a sales process, but simplifying it in a way where it doesn't take up all of my day? Because I've probably got jobs to pick up this week or this month. I've got to find candidates for the jobs that I've got. So I can't sit down for a day and plan my content strategy for the week. So what practical tips could you give recruiters to try and be better at engagement?
try and come across as authentic and as natural as possible. We don't like receiving spam, do we? If you get an email that you think has been sent to loads of people, you respond much less favorably to that than if you receive something where you think the person's written to you, and you alone. And quite a lot of recruiters I speak to sort of get guilty about, copying and pasting a job description or a really long blurb, or trying to push people to certain links to do something. And it just looks like a message that has been copied and pasted to loads of people. Whereas if we start with the principle that all we're trying to do is start a conversation, then dial things back to the shortest possible messages that just achieve that goal of getting a conversation started. That would be, my main advice in that respect.
And that's where I think the development in the messaging part of LinkedIn has been so good. I've started to find myself, I use LinkedIn for quite a lot of business development at the moment, and I sort of have a process whereby every time if someone invites me to connect, they immediately get a message back, which broadly speaking is, hey, thanks for connecting. This is what I share. This is where you can find me. Keep in touch. And I get probably a 40 or 50% response rate on that initial email. And I send a similar email to anyone that connects with me, so it's just literally probably 3 lines. And what I then do is I add in some personalization if it's relevant. So if it's similar geographical location, or we've got other people in comment, but the essence of it is it's sort of 2 or 3 lines. It's not a big, when I see those ones and when you've got to scroll to read something, it's never good. So, but I think making more of that LinkedIn Messenger piece, I think, is really valuable. Well, and because I think actually people are more likely to respond in LinkedIn Messenger than they are from normal email, because it feels a bit more like a chat. So,
yeah, I totally agree. It's obviously we all get spam on LinkedIn, so you definitely don't want to come across like that. But if you do use it to genuinely engage with people and to try and start conversations, then that's really effective. I'll give you an example. We had a client we've been working with to build up the number of connections they had with their ideal prospect base, and they wanted to put a message out to try and convert those new connections into sales meetings. And so they sent through some suggested text for that. And I said, if we send this, you're going to be lucky if you get even 1 in 100 people respond to it. Because who wants to reply and say, yes, I'd love to have a sales meeting with you? You'll get approached by enough businesses trying to sell their services as it is. So I said to them, look, let's go out to those same people and let's plan on writing a blog around the challenges that there are in this space to recruit now that we've got Brexit having all the impacts it's having on the recruitment market. We'd love to get your expert input on that. Could we grab 5-10 minutes on the phone next week to just get your insights on the impact this is having in the business? And what that produced was just a huge flow of people writing back saying, yeah, here's my number, try me on Wednesday afternoon. And then when you have that call, that potential client is opening up about all the challenges they're facing in recruiting right now.
Yeah.
How much of an open goal is that for a recruiter to then turn that into a conversation that's about how they could help with that?
Just all you want is a client just on the phone. And I think one of the questions that came in, Tony, was from Animal, which was sort of, can you give an example of an A/B test? So an A/B test would be, let's send 10 messages going, please meet me. And we'll send 10 messages, which is, would you mind giving me your advice on X? And looking at the different responses that you get. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me give you an example of that. From the earliest days of our business. So we were getting lots of new connections and followers, and we had an A/B test where we put out to people, would you like to join the next webinar we're running, where we're going to be running through for free a whole load of strategies you could use in your business for getting results. And then the B test was, would you like to have a complimentary 1-hour consultation that would normally be this amount of money, and we'll delve in deep into your business and figure out what the right strategy is for you. I've been at conferences where I've had people do a show of hands for this, and it's usually been 5-1 in favor of people thinking the one-to-one sales call would be the winner. Sorry, consultation call. But because you're getting advice that is tailored to your business, it's more valuable than joining a webinar. Actually, the results were the polar opposite. So we got way more people would say, yeah, I'd love to join the next webinar, and then signed up for it and joined the webinar, versus signing up for that consultation call.
And I think that's the key to content marketing. It's not about the content; it's the number of different ways that you keep dragging people back to that content. So when I confirm a LinkedIn connection, I always say, "Thanks for connecting. By the way, here's my next webinar," and the number of connections, the clicks on that I get is terrific. And I'll just ask a quick question: why is it that you think you got more people going for the webinar than going for the one-to-one conversation?
I suspect it's because I don't know the answer because we didn't ask the question, but I suspect it's that a webinar feels less threatening. You're going on to a call with lots of other people, so you're not, signing up to something that could turn into a one-on-one sales pitch. But for us, it was absolutely transformational for the business because obviously a one-to-one sales call means spending an hour with someone on the phone, helping them address their problems. Whereas a webinar, we can present to 100 or 200 people at once. So way more effective use of our time. And what it delivered at the end were people who were really highly qualified prospects for our business because they'd sat through the webinar, they appreciated what needed to be done to be successful and the kind of investment there would need to be successful. And so people who wanted a call at the end of that were pretty much ready to buy. Some tire kickers that we would have got. Okay.
And what topics do you think are relevant for recruitment companies to do as a webinar?
Well, I'm not necessarily saying that a webinar is the right approach. It all depends on your business. But what I would say for a recruitment business, and it echoes what you were saying, the number one thing you want to do is get on a phone call with someone or in a face-to-face meeting, because that's where you stand the best chance of understanding their needs and closing the business. Our business is rather different to that because we have lots of people wanting to try and figure out how to do social media for themselves. No intention of spending any money on engaging someone external to do that. So for us, the biggest challenge is filtering down to people who really do want to pay results.
Yeah. And I think from a recruitment company's perspective, it's always starting with what do you think your customers are interested in? So a lot of candidates are interested in how to get a promotion, how to get a pay rise, how to manage a job search, how not to manage a job search. Line managers are interested in how to retain their best staff, how to manage contractors effectively, how not to use agencies. Sometimes it's the counterintuitive topics that get the most success. And it doesn't matter whether it's a webinar or a blog or a white paper. It's thinking about the challenges recruiters. They're so wired to, do you want a job or have you got a job? That halfway step is just, are you interested in something that we've done? If you think about the number of websites you go to where they don't ask you to buy, but they just ask you to sign up to the newsletter, which is permission to keep in touch. I'm always frightened by the number of agencies that don't have any sort of sign up for just let us get to know you and let us share what we do that's of value to you. Everything's a buy now. Do you want to apply for a job or do you have a job? And I see more and more agencies now having those sort of sign-ups or landing pages, which are attempting to sort of attract people earlier in the sales funnel. We're gonna move on just slightly to the next question because I'm conscious of time. So, is it all about LinkedIn for recruiters, or do other channels work as well?
So I think this ties in a little bit with one of the later questions as well around individual recruiters' presence on social media versus the company presence on social media. Certainly other sites are very powerful. Twitter is a fantastic channel for starting conversations with people. So if we come back to my position would be that you win most business on social media by having conversations with people, not by promoting your business and broadcasting. With that hat on, Twitter can be very effective for getting conversations started with people. Facebook is arguably the most powerful advertising platform, certainly in terms of your ability to get clicks and visibility for a very modest budget. We certainly, part of what we do is just educating recruitment business owners that it's not all about LinkedIn. Yeah. But having said that, from a business development perspective, and thinking about opening the doors with potential new clients, I would say LinkedIn and Twitter would be the two main sites I would see generating results for most of our clients.
Yeah. And also, I guess a lot of it is about where your audience lives. So obviously, you and I sell to recruiters, so LinkedIn is number one for us because that's where our audience lives. But in tech, yep, more people might live in communities like Reddit or Stack Overflow or GitHub. So it's trying to find where do your audience live and communicate, and then be a good citizen within that environment. So one of the comments was like, what happens if you start a conversation and it turns into an argument? Well, it shouldn't. You know, if someone's got a strong view, you've got to facilitate, well, why do they think that? You know, the more you can be seen as a peacemaker rather than a peace breaker, I think whilst stimulating conversation is good, any sort of extreme view that basically polarizes your audience will always leave you coming out the worst. I had an example last week where there was this spate of people name shaming customers that were treating them badly. So this company's just gone behind my back. Here's the email they sent me. And there was 4 or 5 of those came out. And another lady did that, but she didn't name the company. And I just basically went, fair play for not tagging the company. That shows that you're frustrated, but professional still. And I got about 20 likes just on that comment. So whilst everyone was kicking off going, sue them, they're this, they're that, just by being nice and a peacemaker, I got more likes, and all those likes I was able to reach out to going, hey, thanks for liking my comment. I hope you're well. Would you like to connect? And there was another 20 connections. And when I try to connect with someone that's liked any of my posts, I get about a 90% connection acceptance ratio, which then gives me permission to open up that conversation. So sometimes it's just thinking a little more broadly, but also a little bit longer term as well.
And I would say a lot of those conversations should be happening in private anyway. I mean, it's great, obviously, to get involved in group conversations or threads on LinkedIn that are generating lots of views. You might get some good new connections come from that. But the really interesting conversations are the ones you're going to have one-on-one with someone on LinkedIn or somewhere else where you're connected to them, because they're not necessarily going to open up about the biggest problems they've got in their business at the moment on a public post.
True.
Whereas if you take that onto a one-on-one post with them, you know, really enjoyed our interactions earlier today on the such and such post. I was intrigued to hear you say this out of interest, you know, what is the issue there, and just get the conversation then carrying on a one-on-one conversation, private.
That's, I think, the first step of the process is to engage them in some way. Second step is convert it into one-to-one. Next step is convert it into an email or a phone conversation. And it's looking as a stepped process rather than it's all or nothing, which is often how recruiters tend to think. It's like meeting someone for the first time and going, would you like to move in and get married and have 2 kids? No? Really? And they're surprised at that, when naturally I get to speak to my wife at least a couple of times before she even remembered my name, and maybe a couple of times before she answered any of my questions. So you just got to see it a bit more like a real relationship rather than something that's going to go from A to B overnight. Yeah. So one of the things you promised us, Tony, was a step-by-step approach to winning new clients for a particular desk. So let's say, for example, I'm working a specific desk. So let's say, for example, I'm working a compliance desk. Would that be fair? So I'm working let me know if you want a different discipline. I'm working a compliance desk which does regulatory compliance. It's not the sexiest desk in the world. What's a step-by-step guide for the things that I can do to win new business through social media?
So, I mean, that's very hypothetical. I was going to talk about a specific case that we've worked on over the last week.
Do that then. Yes, do a real life example.
Let's not hear hypothetical what might be. Let's hear what actually happens when you do this right. So we were engaged by a recruitment business to open a brand new desk for them in a new country. So they had no presence in that country. They hadn't worked in that particular market before. They'd just done their research and established that this was going to be a massive growth space. And so they wanted to be part of that. So the first thing we did was looked to make their profiles as valuable as possible for people in that sector. So if we think about reach and conversion and that getting you results, clearly the first part of that is to get as much reach as you can with your target clients in that market. If someone lands on your Twitter account and they see, the last 10 things you've tweeted are just you promoting the latest jobs you've got, no potential client's going to have any interest in following that. So you lose any opportunity to actually start a conversation with them. So the first step is to really get inside the minds of people in that market and what are their biggest challenges at the moment? What are the things they're most interested in? And there are a ton of tools on social media for researching this. So that'll be stage one, is come up with a content strategy that's going to make your individual recruiters and your company accounts as valuable as possible.
So then it's on that finding the audience, Tony. So I guess you've got sites like Follower Wonk. Any other, what are some of the tools that people can go to?
For Twitter, I really like Audience, which is spelt with an S rather than a C. That allows you to do really detailed searches on LinkedIn to see what type of profiles there are, and also crucially how active those people are on Twitter. There's no use having an audience or having a big market on Twitter, but no one's actually used it for the last 3 months. So that's a really good one. LinkedIn, obviously, the search interface is pretty straightforward. I would say on most of the sites, setting yourself up as an advertiser and then going through creating a dummy advert is the best way of establishing whether that audience is on the site or not. Because get to see how much of your audience are actually on Twitter to be reached. And that's where you'll discover that certain social sites have a very young demographic, others have older.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's good. And I guess also if you go to so for instance, industries, some industries have quite high levels of qualifications, like the accounting industry. Going to the professional body websites will often tell you the topics that are of most interest to them. And that's often it's the topics that people struggle with, not necessarily just the audience.
So one site I'd recommend there is called BuzzSumo. Sumo like the wrestling. BuzzSumo is basically a search engine for content, but it returns results based on the interest that content is generating on social media. So if you plug in blockchain or cryptocurrency or whatever sector it is you want to get into, you will see the most popular bits of content and how much they've been being shared across different sites. So if you want to know what's generating the most interest on LinkedIn, you can see that. And then even more interestingly, it will identify who are the influencers in that space. So you can get a big long list of people that you probably want to be trying to befriend, and you can see what it is that those influencers are sharing. So actually, with a bit of research up front, you can go from being a recruitment business that has never had a desk in that sector, in that geography, to one that now has one of the most informative and valuable social media presences of any of the players in the market. So that's the first step. The second step is to, well, as you said, decide which platforms you're going to be active on to reach the audience through that research. And then you basically need to set up a process. So what we did for them, Twitter, LinkedIn, we set up a process where we were going to connect or send invitations every day to a set of their target prospects. And then the messaging that we sent when we were trying to connect already tried to spark a conversation. So we asked a question when we sent the LinkedIn connection request, and if 1 in 20 people that accepts the connection responds to that question, you've now got a conversation going about the hiring challenges there are in that particular market. And just to sort of highlight, that particular business got their first sales meetings being booked with some of their target clients within 24 hours of us starting work with them. I don't like to set expectations with new clients that's how fast it's going to happen, because sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But certainly, you're not talking about something where you invest the time now and you don't see any payback for 12 months.
That's interesting, because I think most people see social media as a medium to long-term game rather than something you can gain from quickly.
And I think that is true if you're trying to be a huge brand in a particular sector and you want to be more and more and more visible as a company, then that does take time to build up, the followers and the reach that you have in that sector. But if you're using it for business development, then that can happen a lot quicker. So those would be the steps that I would follow. And then, on an ongoing basis, you then want to think, okay, what messaging strategy would work for us to convert more of these people who are connecting with us or who've become followers into people who have now said, yeah, I'd be open to a call, Alex. Here's my mobile number. Give me a try on Thursday afternoon.
The key to that, Tony, is when I do training on business development, it's really around get someone that you're talking to and then make sure they're in a list so you can communicate with them and engage with them over a consistent period of time. And I think that's the key. Is often I'm not sure how many recruiters connect with people on LinkedIn and then start a process over time where they're looking to build a relationship with those people. Probably more often than not, it's we've connected. Are you interested, or are you looking for a job or not? Rather than, how can I over a period of time just keep sort of just touching you on the metaphorically sort of tagging you, going, hi, I'm still here. What would you like to talk about? Or would this be of interest? Or how would you like to talk about this? And I think that in that way, social media is very similar to a good sort of traditional sales process where it's not expecting people to buy straight away, but nurturing that relationship over time.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And then that is one of the biggest challenges you have in recruitment. Everyone is, given monthly targets and, how many new calls with potential clients have you had this week. So there's always the pressure to accelerate getting results. Whereas actually the best results from social media come if you just show a little bit of patience. And it might be interesting. When we work with a new client, we insist on a 3-month minimum engagement. We don't tie anyone into anything longer than that, but we say, okay, we're going to have delivered results for you within 3 months. And the reason for that is we don't want to get a whole load of connections with people and then instantly be bombarding them with attempts to get a call or a meeting booked in, because it's too soon. You need to build those connections and then have them see you being valuable, see you on LinkedIn, on Twitter, wherever else. And then towards the end of the 3 months, then you hit them up to try and get the meetings.
Also bear in mind is that when you connect with someone on LinkedIn, immediately you're added to their flow, and LinkedIn will naturally promote your content more prominently as part of being a new connection. So what you find is your old connections never appear in your feed. It's a bit like if you go into Facebook and go to someone you haven't seen for ages and you go into their profile, you're amazingly how you'll start seeing their posts come to the top again. And LinkedIn's the same. So just by connecting with them, you're already elevating your view. And I think that's the tag team, which is, one, are you connecting with people? B, what are you going to be feeding to them at the top of their feed going forward? Is it just jobs, or are you actually stimulating conversation? Because LinkedIn wants conversations, doesn't it? It wants people to connect to stay connected. So LinkedIn will help you with that. Quick question. So when you connect with someone on LinkedIn as part of one of your campaigns, do you take that person's contact details out of LinkedIn and then put that into the CRM as part of your drip feeding of content, whether it be a blog or whether it be a newsletter?
We don't do that ourselves because we purely focus on the social media marketing side. So we don't get involved in email marketing or any other forms of marketing. I have a view myself that you shouldn't be doing that unless you have got their consent to do it. I think it's a very quick way to annoy people, to start sending them emails that they haven't requested. And obviously GDPR is going to bring in various restrictions on what you can and can't do there as well.
Unless when they connect with you, you go, thanks for this, please see my privacy policy. And then you can, although to be fair, I think that would encourage them to disconnect with you if that's the best communication they've got.
Exactly. So, that kills the authenticity. If most of the results are going to come from you having conversations with people who've liked connecting with you, who've liked the way you've interacted with you, then to sort of make things very commercial by putting, terms and conditions under their nose or
no, that's true. Andy Johnson's just asked, is it a good thing to go left field with your content? So not just talk about your area of expertise, but things like the news, weather, sports, to increase the level of engagement within your network?
This is a really hotly debated one. So if you look on your LinkedIn homepage feed, I'm quite sure you'll see lots of posts from people where what they're talking about is pretty far removed from what they actually do as a business. And there are people going down the route of picking things to talk about precisely because they're contentious or because they, are emotive, and so get tons and tons of comments and therefore stay in the feed for ages. My view on that is you end up being seen by a whole load of people who stand no chance of ever being a client or a candidate for your business. And so I would rather have 5,000 people in a really tight niche see an update from me than 500,000 where most of those 500,000 have absolutely no prospect of ever being a client.
I think the key is try and find an angle, and take a topical topic and find the angle that's relevant to your market. And that's where the best way I've seen it described to me is, if you imagine the piece of content someone else has produced is this, and your commentary or the context that you put in your initial post effectively is a veneer on top of it. So you could say, well, yes, this is the Winter Olympics, and why is that relevant for us, as in your audience, is where the best value to be had is. Okay. Yeah. So we got a thanks from Andy. So cheers, Andy. So the last question. I know we've got a few people waiting for this. When it comes to investing in social media presence, is it more important to have a strong company presence, or is it more important for the individual recruiters to have a strong presence?
For business development, I would say it's the presence of your individual recruiters that will bring the strongest results. So I would definitely invest in them growing their networks and spending more time starting conversations. Having said that, that is the asset in your business that can most easily walk out the door. So when we work with companies, we usually help them to grow a company presence and then the presence of several key individuals within the business, so that they're not completely reliant on either one. And if one person does walk out the door, there's still some other people that we've been doing that work for who are in the business. And sort of a last point on that, I guess, I would focus the business development investment on the directors, the owners, the people who are most bought into staying with the business. Because otherwise you can put a lot of effort into growing a network that effectively becomes the means by which that recruiter can leave and set up their own business. There is also
a point, which is the stronger the company brand, the easier it is for recruiters to use that brand to open up the door. And increasingly, I talk to clients about social media and events and content that you produce is really, it's about all that stuff is produced to help your recruiters find it easier to build relationships. So I spent my career in Robert Half. And so there wasn't a quarter went by when I didn't have an event or a salary survey or a white paper. And whilst that promoted the brand of Robert Half, really it helped me promote my brand to those individuals. And I guess it's the companies making sure they are producing things, making it easy for recruiters to open the door, either because the company already knows them or because the recruiter's got some content that's of interest where they will speak to them. And so my thoughts would always be company first, but the company's efforts should be able to be used by everybody across the organization. So I don't know what your thoughts on that would be, Tony.
Yeah. I'd agree with that. And I'd say it is easy.
I think we've broken again. I think we're broken. I'm not sure who it is. Tony, come back to us. Ah! This is what happened. This is what happens in live TV. You'd be disappointed to know this would be the second PC that Tony's lost while this goes. So on this note, I'm going to thank Tony Restell and the frozen picture that we see now. He's a fantastic guy. He's had some fantastic response. Please feel free to check out nurturit.io if you want help in building your sales pipeline. Check out social-hire.com if you want to check out what Tony does as well. So thank you very much for joining the show, everybody, and we'll speak to you soon. Take care now. Bye.